Well, Razorback fans, we had a chance to hear from Travis Williams, the defensive coordinator for Arkansas. I'm going to tell you, there might be some reason for concern on this Razorback defense. So let's talk about it on today's Locked On Razorbacks podcast.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I am your host, John Nabors. I am also the host of Inside Arkansas Live, which you can catch every weekday starting at noon on Inside Arkansas and InsideArkansas.com. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Hope everybody's having a wonderful Tuesday as we are getting closer and closer to football season. 18 days away from Razorback football starting up. But we'll talk about Cam Ball specifically, the defensive lineman for Arkansas, because it's amazing the type of things that get said about him, and it's all good. And then also, too, I will get into just a little bit of basketball because I got to take some issue with some rankings that continue to come out. But I wanted to start with the Razorback defense in general today on the show. We know that the Razorback defense this season is an uncertainty, just like so many things on this team. I like Travis Williams as a defensive coordinator. I love Marcus Woodson as a safeties coach. I think Deke Adams has done a really good job. I think they added some pieces, at least on paper, from the portal that feel like they could really navigate and be even better than what it was this past year, at least in the secondary part. But there's still just so many new names. And there's ones that you, if you're a Razorback fan, you're kind of looking at it like, all right, so what to expect out of this guy? He did pretty well here, or maybe this guy out of the portal had these offers to other places. But still, it's just up in the air. I look at Xavian Sorey, one of those guys that was a former five-star player, was at Georgia, but he's coming back this year. It's like, all right, well, feel really good about him. Feel really good about Steven Dix, the other linebacker. Cam Ball, I mentioned him. Feel good about him, which I know we'll talk about more specifically. But, all right, what about Quincy Rhodes? Well, yeah, I like Quincy Rhodes, all right. Okay. Got Miguel Mitchell. Yeah, I mean, I guess. And then it just kind of seems to drop off a little bit, just as far as familiarity goes. But either way, on Saturday at the scrimmage, which we talked about yesterday, a lot of it dealing with some of the details. But the scrimmage consisted of, on Saturday, some big plays by the Razorback offense against the defense. And it was really big plays that in the beginning part of it, it wasn't just something that just happened maybe towards the end when things were fatigued or anything like that. From the jump, it seemed that the defense was getting hit pretty heavy and pretty hard as far as everything that goes on that front. So, all right, what does that mean? You could take it one way or the other. You could be somebody that thinks that it means everything and somebody that thinks it means nothing. But I'm still going to go on the side of, all right, well, we just know what we know. And so far, what we know is about the defense has not been overly complimentary. In fact, here's Travis Williams talking about the situation with his defense on Saturday and why they gave up so many big plays.
Right. Some of it was communication, and some of it is, I got this man, I just need to cover him, right? So very first play, the linebacker has the back out the backfield, and he's wide open over there as nobody's on him. So, like, you just got to cover your guy. And just one of them was a communication deal, and we have to communicate pre-snap and post-snap. The pre-snap is, hey, alert, push, or banjo, or whatever our bingo, whatever our verbiage is pre-snap. And then once the ball snap, you have to talk again. So you just can't talk pre-snap and not talk post-snap. So, okay, post-snap, push. So you have to be able to communicate. You can't be out there just standing around and they snap the ball and, oh, what I got. It has to be a pre-snap communication and a post-snap communication.
Okay, so that's a very obvious thing of what he says. But we spend a lot of time on the communication part. Now, the communication part is crucial. It's important. And it's obviously something you don't want to have lacking and something you need to get better at. But it might be, in fact, I don't think it's a might, it is the most fixable, easiest thing to overcome and to get better at when it comes to practices in fall camp. Because again, we're 18 days away. There's still time. And if it's communication, That's not something that everyone's just like, I don't know what to do, and I don't know how to communicate. When you know how to communicate, you just need to know about when to communicate, how to communicate to certain people. It's a very easy, fixable thing. But the first part of it was when he was talking about, people just not being, on their man or any sort of breakdowns there. I think the alarming thing for me is when you couple this with some of the other stuff that's gotten thrown around. And I'm, again, basing this off of what coaches have said in press conferences or players or reports or whatever it is. But it certainly seems to have the vibe that there are some defensive players that either are not where they need to be at this point in time in fall camp, or not at all what they need to be at this point in time, in any point in time, and they may not even see the field much. Now, I'm not coming down on any particular players because I think that, again, fall camp, there's plenty of time to overcome it and to switch it out. But, it seems like a guy like a David Oakey on the defensive line, from what it sounds like, he just hasn't been where he needs to be. And Ian Jafard, same type of deal, just not where he needs to be. You think about the secondary players and some of the guys that they were hoping to count on and then to step right in. There just hasn't been a whole lot of talk about them. And the ones that you have heard a little bit about, at least the ones you may be most familiar with from last year, those are the guys that aren't really, or at least not set to take first team snaps and be the guys that you rely on. So it's just not something you truly want to hear. Now, Justice Boone, the transfer out of Florida, I feel like he's probably gotten mentioned more than anybody when it comes to newcomers on the defense. And that's great. You really hope that he steps up. He's got a big shoes to fill, literally and figuratively, with Landon Jackson no longer being on the team. But I'm not going to put that expectation on him to be, oh, man, you better be Landon Jackson good. It'd be great if he was. But besides that, and the other players that they got on the field on defense, it's just kind of, I don't like that. They always say that the defense is supposed to be further along than the offense in the early part of the fall camp. Well, that hasn't been the case yet. And when you talk about a defense that has what Arkansas has and the cards they've been dealt when it comes to their roster and their talent and everything, especially their depth, you want to hear the positives in the early part of it. Now, some people may say that, like I did, and I should include myself into this, that if there's not really nothing in the fall camp that's going to make me change my mind on wins and losses. Like, yeah, sure, I guess maybe if horrible things happen, like, your entire quarterback room, everybody gets hurt and tears their ACL, which, don't wish that upon anybody, so let's not even manifest that. But there's just really not much, barring injury, that will really change my mind on wins and losses this year. If Arkansas's offense just goes out there and each and every practice and each and every day dominates, that's not going to make me be like, I had them at 6-6, but because the defense is so bad and the offense is so good, I'm going to have them at 4-8. Like, I'm not going to do that. If you do that, that's fine. But it's about taking that next step if you're the defense. Like, the defense wasn't incredible last year. We talked about it. They've ranked 111th in pass defense and everything. Plenty of room to improve. But what's it going to take for them to get to that next point, to get to that next step? What is that going to take? Travis Williams also discussed that too.
We just have to like, we don't do all this work to be whatever, right? Like, we want to be like the best at what we do. And that's Coach Pittman's standard, offensively, special teams, and defense. So it's my job to make sure the defense is playing at a high level, taking it to another level. This is our third season, right, in the system. Now, the portal was a little different than the older days. The third season, you're like, okay, this is the third year in the system. The guys should have it, but it's forever. The portal is like a revolving door. But the standard haven't changed. Like, if you're playing the University of Arkansas, you're playing their offense, their defense, their special teams, you're going to see, okay, those guys play hard and they play with a passion. So we just have to take it to another level and be a dominant defense, right? And how you do that, a lot of times, yes, you got to have players, but whoever's out there, those 11, man, just bust your tail to the ball. And when you get there with bad intentions. And everything else take care of itself.
And honestly, truly, that is the right attitude to have. He talks about the standard and the expectations that are to go there, and to just kind of bust your tail and everything. That's, to me, the quintessential way of having a solid defense at Arkansas, at least with this type of group. If you don't have NFL caliber players, across the board, or at least in a lot of important positions, it's going to be that bend and not break defense. It's going to be about, all right, let's try to scheme them up. Let's try to confuse them a little bit. Let's try to have our athleticism, like all of these things. But the point of all of this, folks, is that if Arkansas is going to be facing some of these good offenses this year with a good quarterback, which some of them are suspect, there's a lot of new quarterbacks that Arkansas is going to be facing this year, so we'll see how much of them all play out. But if Arkansas is going to have that success, and if it's going to have to happen on the defensive side, it has to come in the pass rush. It's as simple as that. If Arkansas cannot pass rush, they will get destroyed. I don't care how good the cornerbacks are, the safeties are. I don't care how good Xavian, Sorey, or Steven Dix are. I don't care. It doesn't matter. Because if you're sending 4 D linemen, to try to get some pass rush, and you got any quarterback just standing back there for 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi, that's only going to be a matter of time before he picks you apart. So to me, it's really going to come down to all of that. And that's kind of where some of the maybe more alarming feelings come from, is it just doesn't seem like right now where it stands, your pass rush is there. You got Justice Boone, maybe a little bit of Quincy Rhodes, but are you going to find that? Are you going to have that to where you got the depth for it? Because as much as Justice Boone may be good or Quincy Rhodes may be good, they can't play the whole game. They can't play every snap. You're going to have to find guys to step up. And so just based on everything right now, it is a little concerning. But that also is not me saying that everything's doomed and there's nothing to come from this and to maybe improve upon it. Because I'll tell you this right now. It's as simple as Arkansas and defense having a great scrimmage this upcoming Saturday where they dominate, when they stand out. If they do that, it's going to be okay. But if this continues of the feelings that are being portrayed and players being challenged and players being felt like the ones that are supposed to step up have not stepped up yet, then it's going to be pretty alarming. It's going to be pretty alarming. But one thing that's not alarming is Cam Ball, the defensive lineman for Arkansas. He's awesome. And Travis Williams believes it too. So let's talk about him coming up next on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. All right, Razorback fans, I'm here to tell you about our friends over at Game Time. We've all been there logging on early and waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for the show that you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making those memories instead of dealing with all the stress of ticket shopping. But that's where Game Time comes in. Game Time makes concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop as you get closer to showtime, and you can save up to 60% with their killer last-minute deals. If you're tired of endlessly scrolling trying to find the best deal, well, Game Time Zone Picks give you the best seats in the section for you. Ever wonder what your view will look like before you buy? Well, on the Game Time app, it shows a panoramic view, so there are just no surprises to be given. With Game Time, the price you see is the price you pay, no hidden fees. So take the guesswork out of buying concert and show tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, so moving on into the next segment of the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. So again, we've been talking a lot about the defensive side of the ball and Arkansas trying to accomplish a feat that is difficult, and that is in any landscape of college football, but especially in the SEC, to have a serviceable defense. Besides maybe the Georgias or the Texases or any of these teams that have the access to the elite level talent, it's always going to be a challenge. But one thing, though, you got to give a lot of credit where credit is due, especially when it comes to players and players at Arkansas, is you got to be able to look at the ones that stuck with you. Transfer portal's killer. We know that. Arkansas got gutted by it. Other players going to other schools in the SEC. And a lot of these guys Arkansas is going to be facing this upcoming season. But it's a matter of being the way it is. It's unfortunate. You hate it. You wish it would change, but it is the way it is. It's the commonality of all college football now. Except for Cam Ball. Cam Ball, the defensive lineman, is not that way. He's very, very, very different. In fact, here is Travis Williams talking about Cam Ball and truly just how different he is.
He's unbelievable. Cam gonna be like successful. He's gonna play on Sundays. He's gonna have probably a successful business or run some type of successful program or be in politics or something. I don't know, but he is a great human being. He lights up the room. You know, it's hard to find, and that's something like that needs to be celebrated. Like, he is a Arkansas man. He stayed here, didn't leave. People was coming at him with a lot of money, and he stayed here. So when you're talking about, okay, he's going to be a guy that could come back to football games and people going to know who he is. He could be able to bring his kids here. It means something because he stuck it out. It's year 5. It's unheard of. So he's a guy that's embraced the state. He's a guy that loves the state. He's an unbelievable human being. I could go on and on about Cam. He's unbelievable.
So that was Travis Williams on Cam Ball. And I think he said it perfectly, of just how rare and how incredible it is to see somebody heading into his 5th year at the same school. I went back and I looked at some of the history from Cam Ball. You know, in 2021, he was a freshman. That year, Arkansas went 9-4. He was a freshman. He played in 2 games. He redshirted, but played against Georgia Southern and UAPB. That was it. But then in 2022, he saw action in all 13 games while starting in the Liberty Bowl later that year. 2023, he played in 11 games with 6 starts, including each of the final 4 games of the season. And then last year, started every single game. Had 47 tackles, including 4 for loss and 1.5 sacks. So it's a rarity. We know this about Cam Ball. It's a rarity to see a player like him in that way. Now, there's to get 2 things I can take from this. I'll start with more of maybe the negative side. The way that Travis Williams lays it out and saying that, hey, there was a lot of people that came after him, offering a lot of money, but he stayed. Now, in principle, that is incredible, and that makes me respect Cam Ball so much, because that's not just going for the bag, which I'm not blaming anyone that does, okay? So just relax. I'm not blaming someone for going and getting more money. We all want that. However, if somebody values something more than money, just getting more and more money, values loyalty, values the team, values the coaches, values the state, values the fan base, whatever it is, that's something unique and that's something special. And as Travis Williams says, that's something to be celebrated. However, hearing about so many people coming in with a lot of money and him not going anywhere, it just once again reiterates the fact that not only are you unable to pay for a lot of the players that you want to have from year to year, but it also just kind of shows that he's talking about Cam Ball, an exception to the rule. Like that's not the commonality. That's not something that's just going to happen every year. Well, let's just go in and get some good, solid players that'll be here for 5 years and not worry about going and getting more money. It's an anomaly. It's not a common thing. It should be revered. It should be valued. It should be respected, but it's not common, and it's not something that's sustainable, and it should never stay that way. But it also says to me, though, and on a positive note, that someone like Cam Ball valuing the loyalty and the Razorback way and being a true Razorback, an Arkansas man, as Travis Williams points it out, that's something that as an Arkansan myself and as a Razorback fan growing up, that it does mean something to me. And I'm always going to have a very high level of respect for someone like Cam Ball. Because anybody that wants to go anywhere, they will. Anybody that needs more money, and if you're a school like Arkansas that apparently doesn't help out with NIL as much, and you start getting, especially kids that may not have the best situations back at home where they have a bunch of money, and it's like, hey, this is game-changing money that could help out your family and help out your loved ones. It's hard to say no, especially at that young age. But when you see somebody like that values something more than money, because I'm one of those that believe there's more to life than money. Yeah, I want to make money. That's why I have my own business. That's why I do this. We got to make a living, and more of it is always nice. But it doesn't need to be the priority in every walk of life. It doesn't need to be the thing that drives you to do anything and everything in your life. It should drive you to help support yourself, support your family, and it should drive them to give them the best life possible. But it should never be the number one thing that you go after in every aspect. That's my opinion. And you can disagree, but that's my opinion. And that's why I appreciate Cam Ball so much. He's a true Razorback, a true Arkansan. He's all about being a hog. And for that, I'll forever be grateful, regardless of how this year goes for him or for the team. I will always be grateful, and I'll always have a whole lot of respect for Cameron Ball. I don't have respect for people that make crap lists when it comes to coaching rankings, and I'm going to talk about it on the other side of the break. So stay with us here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. All right, so final segment here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. All right, we gotta put an end to some of this nonsense, folks. We have got to put an end to this nonsense. And you're like, what are you talking about, John? What's got you crawled up your crawl now? Well, I know it's list season, and I know it's football season for the most part, but there are still so many things that I'll see for basketball that just really drive me up a wall. And you can say that it's because I'm biased. Oh, I am. I'm a Razorback fan. But it's also because of the fact that some of these lists, you could just tell. And I saw some Razorback fans getting all fed up about this. And I'm talking about On3 put out their top 10, they're ranking their SEC coaches in basketball. Okay. And they have Todd Golden at number 1. I'm not going to argue that. Dude just won a championship. Can't argue it. He's got Nate Oates at number 2. All right. I don't like Nate Oates at all. I don't like him at all. But he's a good coach, and numbers speak for itself. Can't argue it. Bruce Pearl, kind of the same thing. Numbers don't lie. He's been to a couple Final Fours. He's had success. Been pretty consistent for the most part, but really good coach. Rick Barnes at number 4. I don't know. I mean, listen, I'm not going to sit here and throw a fit about it, but let's be honest. I mean, Rick Barnes is a great coach, but at times he's kind of failed a little bit in the postseason, but he has, as of late, gotten better. But I'll say this about old Rick. Dude has probably the most consistent win-loss record in the SEC at Tennessee that I've ever seen. I mean, the guy, every year that you play Tennessee, it's going to be a tough game. Every single year. And so I do give him a lot of credit for that, because consistency is tough, especially in this modern day of college basketball. But I'm not going to throw a fit about that. I'll tell you right now that John Calipari is ranked number 6. Not 5, 6. They have Mark Pope at number 5. Okay. Based on what? Like, Mark Pope in Kentucky went to the distance of Sweet 16 last year. Good for them. They also went 10-8 in SEC play. Great. Cal put it to them with Arkansas over in Rupp. But yet, you're saying Mark Pope is better than Cal. Why? Well, let me tell you something, folks. This is the whole reason I'm bringing it up. It's not to upset you and to trigger you. I'm bringing it up to help you. If you see a list like this, because there's been another one too. I know Curtis talked about it on his stuff, but like, if there's another list that you see and it's got a ranking and it's got Cal here, but then it's got Pope or whoever ahead. And especially Pope is one I'm looking at. I think there was one that said Chris Jans ahead. I'm like, nonsense like that. Just remember, it's content bait. It is absolute rage bait and being able to farm content because of the explosive nature that John Calipari always has anytime content and anytime articles are written. But especially with the Kentucky faithful, the Big Blue Nation out there, if they see Mark Pope ahead of John Calipari, they are going to go nuts and share. Boo, 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 boo. Everyone's going to click on it and everyone's going to go crazy. Just keep that in mind, okay? I just, because here's the deal. It has to be that. It has to be that thing. It has to be that has to be the reason why anybody would rank right now, where it stands, Mark Pope ahead of John Calipari. Because if it's not just playful trolling to try to get clicks, it's truly because they have no idea what they're talking about. And it's truly that awful of a list. There's no way on God's green earth that you can convince me right now, that Mark Pope at Kentucky, who I think is an all right coach, is better or should rank higher than John Calipari as a head coach right now where it stands. Get out of here. But content farming, it happens. I would never do such a thing. I mean, come on. What I look like. Somebody who's trying to get as many views and downloads as possible? Come on now. Appreciate each and every one of you listening and watching into the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or on Google Play. You can also get after me on Twitter at John Nabors Show for any questions, comments, concerns that you may have. Keep it going from there. Same podcast time, same podcast channel. Tomorrow afternoon. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you then.